Yes, you are in the right place, and this will be a video about liquid seaweed and what it will do for your plants. But I can't open a conversation like this with you without showing you the results of this search that you're looking at right now. I can't recommend synthetic chemicals of any kind for lawn or garden, and they're dangerous for you, they're dangerous for your pets, and they're dangerous for our environment. If you've spent any time watching this channel, and I hope you have, you probably already know that I do not recommend synthetic fertilizers, herbicides, fungicides, any of that kind of stuff. The synthetic, so many of the synthetic products are harmful to our environment. They are harmful to people. They are harmful to pets. And I just can't, in good conscience, recommend any of them. So in this video, I want to share with you what I do use and how great it can work in your garden as well. Hi, I'm Kara, and this is Home and Garden DIY, where you'll get the information you need to get started on the projects that you want to work on. If you're not familiar with liquid seaweed, this is the kind that I'm currently using, the brand that I'm currently using, and there are a lot of different makers of liquid seaweed. I don't find that it really makes any difference which maker's seaweed that I use. The only thing that you want to be sure of is that you have an understanding of what it is to use liquid seaweed only, or use liquid seaweed that comes in a container mixed with fish emulsion. Now, the difference between those two is that liquid seaweed actually helps to stimulate growth. It is a food, and the primary thing it does is that it helps plants to put on extremely strong root systems very, very quickly. Fish emulsion, which I said often comes mixed with liquid seaweed, is actually extremely high in nitrogen, as you might imagine. It works as really well as a food to stimulate growth, but again, it's extremely high in nitrogen, so it's not something that you can use when your plant is in a dormant season or going into a dormant season, because again, it will stimulate growth. It's very important that you have just liquid seaweed if you're simply trying to encourage strong roots on your plants. Now, the way I became a complete and total fan of liquid seaweed was when my husband and I were using it to test and see how quickly we could get okra seeds to germinate so that we could plant them out in the garden already germinated. For those of you who may not be familiar with planting okra or with how hard okra seeds are, they're actually one of the harder vegetable seeds to germinate, and on most packages it will tell you that it's going to take somewhere between 10 and 14 days for an okra seed to germinate. That's what my husband and I have found as we've planted the seed directly in the garden without soaking it in water. That was the first thing we tried. We just soaked them in water overnight. Well, those seeds, when we planted them out in the garden, ended up germinating in about a week, maybe either a week or 8 days. I can't remember. I'd have to look back in my garden notes. But it was a little bit shorter than the 10 to 14 days, but not a lot shorter. So I had read about liquid seaweed and decided to try germinating seeds with it to see what it would do. The first thing I tried was seaweed needs to be mixed with water if you're going to just be applying it to plants. And you'll just follow the instructions on whatever container, whatever brand you buy. But most times it's going to be mixed 1 ounce or 2 ounces to a gallon of water. So I mixed up, this one you need to do 1 ounce to 1 gallon of water. So I mixed that up. I took a bowl, I put about this much of the water and seaweed mixture in the bowl, and I put a dozen okra seeds in the bowl. Those seeds germinated in 4 days. The next time I decided to try just straight seaweed, and those seeds germinated overnight, which we were absolutely stunned by. And at this point in what I was filming for you, I absolutely lost a brain cell and could not remember either of the words embryo or cotyledon. So this slide shows you the cotyledon, which is the white taproot that you see emerging out of this seed. Of course, a seed is dormant, and when it begins to receive hydration, that embryo wakes up and the cotyledon starts to emerge from the seed. See that little brown dot? That is the cotyledon coming out of the seed already. Let's see if I can get my hand to hold nice and still. There we go. That's the cotyledon coming out of the seed. And that's just 28 hours in the seaweed. Here's another one you can see. That one's even better than the other one. That one is really starting to come out. Let's check all of these. See, you can really see it there starting to come out. It's not quite as noticeable yet, but you can see it is open, and the cotyledon, which is coming out from the embryo on the inside of the seed, is that seed, the outside of the seed has broken open, and that cotyledon is ready to come out. Now on okra seeds, okra, yeah, that one's good too. Look at that. You can see from the side there, it's already protruding. 28 hours. It is absolutely amazing stuff. I couldn't recommend it more highly to you. The other thing it does is it will help your plants to green up if they're just looking like they need to be fed. They do wonders for roses. You can spray your foliage with liquid seaweed, and I do recommend that you do that. If you decide to do it, you just need to make sure that you write down in your garden notes how often you're doing that, and then observe your plants and see what they're looking like as a result. You may find that your plants respond instantly to it and they look much, much better. Or you might find that they may need a couple of applications in order for them to improve in whatever way that you're looking for them to look better and for the foliage to look healthier, or for them to be putting on more blooms. With regard to spraying roses or really any plants that you want to foliar feed with seaweed, I've put together some tips for you. The first is that I would recommend you use a tank sprayer as opposed to a hose end sprayer. I find the tank sprayer gives me a more accurate application of whatever it is that I apply to my plants. Also, it's very important that you keep in mind that you need to spray your plants either morning or evening, but not midday, because otherwise you're going to end up with leaves scorched on your plants. My third tip for you is to make sure that you record in your garden notes when you actually do your spraying. Starting with spraying once a week is a good procedure, and you can look back in your garden notes to see how it is affecting your plants and adjust your schedule from there. Since I mentioned that liquid seaweed does help your plants to put on really strong root systems, I want to mention to you what I recommend to my clients when they're using seaweed when they first plant a new plant in their landscape. You can use it on containers, but I most often recommend it for people to use it when they're planting plants directly in the ground. What I often recommend is, depending on the size of the plant and depending on what time of the year the plant is going in the ground, I recommend that you water your plant every single day with the mixed up liquid seaweed for at least 1 week. If it's a plant that you're putting in the ground, we're here in north central Texas, if you're putting a plant in the ground in the middle of the summer, often I'll recommend every day for 2 weeks. If you're putting a plant in the ground that is at the end of the season and you're concerned that you may get some cold weather before it can get established, in that situation I'd recommend that you water every day for 2 weeks. The final thing that I want to mention to you, whether you're using seaweed or liquid molasses or fish emulsion or any other liquid fertilizer or food that you're putting on that's an organic amendment, the best thing you can do to make sure that that amendment goes right to the root ball of the plant that you're wanting to apply it to, and that it stays there, is to make sure that you water the root ball first with just plain water. When you do that, that's going to help that root ball to hold that water there, and then when you water your amendment in, it's going to stay right in that root ball instead of running off and being sucked into the surrounding ground or draining right on through. Having just quickly shared with you the way to use liquid seaweed, I want to offer my help. Go ahead and leave your questions in the comments if you have them about specific plants you have in your yard and how much seaweed you should apply to yours and how often, and I'll get back with you and get you some help. Now, I will have a bonus for you later in the video, so be sure and stick around for that. Because a consistent practice of organic gardening is so important to the health and the well-being of all the creatures, interesting and beautiful, that we like to see in our outdoor spaces, I've linked for you in the description information about a few different topics that pertain to this whole matter of organic gardening. So if that's something that you would like to learn more about, I have that information for you down in the description, and you can go and check that out. So if you've never thought about organic gardening or what that means, I would just encourage you to think about it and to learn more about what organic gardening is. In keeping with that whole paradigm, I'm going to be creating some videos that discuss other organic amendments, and that will be coming up in the coming months, so you can be watching for those. I hope what I've shared with you about liquid seaweed and about organic amendments has been helpful to you. And as I often do, I'm going to finish off this video with beautiful flowers and music for you to enjoy. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.